Okay, so sexuality is a hugely important subject that is, clearly very taboo in our current society, and it's not shocking because it's actually one of the greatest access points for our power is our ability to harness our sexual energy. So if you think about it, there is actually nothing can exist without sexual energy. Truth. Male and female counterparts have to come together in order to create new life. We can see that everywhere, right? And so in order for life to exist, there must be sexual energy. And so sexual energy is essentially, I believe, again, look, using this diagram, if at the very top there's everything, there's source consciousness, which is just all that is. At the very bottom there's nothing, there's essentially darkness, and there's lack of awareness. Then this very first layer of density that happens once the split occurs, right? Everything that you're seeing here is essentially diagramming the split, that the gradient into the density. And so everything that is available here basically begins with life. It begins with sexual energy, which essentially are these polarities that are engaging with each other to create something else. And so you could say, and the sexual healers that I work with believe this, that source consciousness is love, right? Let's just call it love for the sake of ease. And right underneath that, so that very first stage of density is sexual energy, which is necessary for life to exist. So actually, sexual energy is, next to love, it's the highest frequency energy that you can tap into. And you have a button on your body that literally allows you to access it like a Pez dispenser. You can access that super high vibrational energy, creative life force energy, through the portal that is your body. Okay? Now, is it surprising that we have been programmed with all of these very distorted programs of perversion around sexuality, when sexuality is actually the very thing that allows us to be sovereign and step into creator consciousness? I don't think so. I think it makes a lot of sense that we've been very purposefully disconnected from our sexuality, and sexuality has been turned into something very dark. There's a lot of dark energy that has essentially tried to take hold of the sexual energy, but we are essentially allowing it. I mean, that's really there's no better word to describe that. We're allowing it through our lack of awareness. So by not being aware, aware of what's going on, by not being in the driver's seat of our experience, other beings that understand sexual energy and maybe don't have a physical body but would like to access sexual energy because it's the most valuable resource in the universe, will simply latch onto ours and start to siphon it off of us and use it for whatever they want to use it for. And so this is very real. I have had all sorts of plugs and attachments pulled out of me that have been siphoning my sexual energy out of me, and all of the, the trauma that I've incurred over the lifetimes of being, told that sexuality was wrong and bad, and being burned at the stake for my sexuality, and all of the experiences I've gone through have created a very, very distinct disconnection, or did create a very distinct disconnection from my own sexuality, because it just simply wasn't safe for me to access. And so as I've been doing this deep healing work and clearing all of that out of my system, I am now gaining access again to the ability to essentially channel that very high vibrational energy through my system, and then use it just like I would use money to point it into the direction of my choosing of what I want to create. And so all of this, everything that I've explained so far, is actually the foundation for you to understand trillionaire consciousness. And here's why. You have close to 37 trillion cells in your body. The exact number is debatable, and it's probably always changing because cells are constantly dying and replenishing themselves. But let's say around 37 trillion, because that's my Google search gave me that. And so if you have mastery of every single one of those cells, meaning your expression in the world, both physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, is congruent and is is mastered through your awareness that is in the driver's seat and holding the steering wheel of your experience, you instantly become a trillionaire. You are literally already a trillionaire. The question is, do you actually know how to harness the potency of the creation machine that you are? Because we are God's technology. Our bodies are quantum computers. They are some of the most complex, highly evolved instruments on the planet in existence today. Nothing we have created as human beings, no matter how impressive our accomplishments, has come close to the extraordinary complexity of the very vehicle or vessel that you are currently inhabiting. So take a breath and ask yourself, are you taking care of it? Are you loving it? Are you caressing it? Are you giving it good food? Are you giving it good water? What are you allowing into your space? Everything that interacts with you is having an impact on your energetic signature. So you get to take responsibility for what you're allowing into your space. So trillionaire consciousness is the moment that you realize, and not just intellectually realize, but your body realizes that you are a congruent expression of the same thing, essentially, which is God in physical form. And you, through your body and your ability to harness your sexual energy and your energetic sovereignty, choosing what frequency you vibrate at, there is literally nothing that you cannot do or have. You are infinite in your ability to create worlds. The moment that you realize that, you become a trillionaire, literally and figuratively. And so moving or transmuting poverty consciousness, scarcity consciousness into trillionaire consciousness is essentially the understanding that lack or scarcity is just a program you're running that you took on as reality or as truth when you split from source. And your emancipation from that program is you actually claiming ownership of that which is already there, which is your physical body, your emotional capacities, your mental capacities, and then of course your spiritual capacities, which are infinite in nature. And the sentiment that we hear so often thrown around the spiritual community, which is, all the answers are within you, it's actually, it's like the answer is hidden in plain sight. Yes, it's in you, it's in your DNA, it's literally encoded into your genetic material. So, part of what anchoring trillionaire consciousness into embodiment looks like, because it's one thing to get it intellectually and another thing to have every single cell in your body in alignment with that frequency and that knowing. There are DNA upgrades that are happening that are allowing for that embodiment to occur. So I want to talk a little bit about those, because that is hugely why I'm able to sit here and share this information with you, having literally just had my spiritual awakening like 3 years ago. I mean, less actually, almost 3 years at this point. 3 years ago, I was not meditating. I was not conscious really in any way. I was interested in the law of attraction, but I didn't really fully understand it. I was trying to intellectually understand it. I didn't understand it with my being. And I was an unemployed actress working a corporate job that I didn't like. And, a lot can happen in 3 years, essentially, I'm the living proof. And so what allowed for this very, very swift and rapid accelerated growth is, first of all, I didn't learn anything. I actually just remembered what was already there, because there is the eternal part of me that's known this all along, and I've simply given myself access to that part and allowed that part to come into my body through choice, through transmutation, through shedding of density, and through these DNA upgrades. So what are DNA upgrades? DNA is essentially the blueprint for everything that you experience in your biology today. Like the architect has a blueprint for the house that he's building, you're going to need a blueprint to be able to know where what goes. And so currently, the scientific community agrees, or maybe this is changing now with epigenetics, but from my understanding, mainstream science says 98% of your DNA is dormant. It's inactive, and therefore it's junk DNA. That's like, I think, actually the literal term that they use to describe it, junk DNA. And only 2% of your DNA is actually active and is creating everything that you see in existence around you. So if we look at nature, that's very highly unlikely, right, for there to be 98% junk. I mean, nothing in nature is inefficient. It's all being used. It all has purpose. So that doesn't make sense and is completely counterintuitive to everything we see around us. So if it's true then that 98% is not junk, but actually just information we haven't accessed yet, then what is possible when we do? What, quite literally, the information stored in that genetic material has the ability to make you what we would call superhuman, or what others might say is just restoring the divine blueprint of what you actually were always meant to be. It's just somewhere along the way you got disconnected from that information. So DNA upgrades are the actual intentional activation of that dormant DNA. And you might go, well, that sounds really complicated. Like, what do I have to do to activate my dormant DNA? Well, actually, it's, again, you're creating this whole experience, so you get to just simply choose to bring it online through declaring it and through your intention. Now, in order for it to actually, unfold and for that new software that's being installed to run properly, all of the bugs, all of the malware that's currently in your system, because you are a computer, will have to be cleared out, because that new operating that new OS, the new software that you're installing every time you activate more of your DNA is vibrating at a different frequency than the trauma and the pain and the suffering that you've stored in your system. So they're incompatible. So if you want to activate your dormant DNA, you actually have to be willing to feel, again, all the shit you didn't want to feel and transmute that in your body so that you can start to vibrate at that higher frequency. I hope this is making sense. So DNA upgrading is, at its essence, as simple as intending that you want to go down that rabbit hole, and as complex as, consistently getting to the breaking point within your own healing journey where you realize you can't do it alone and you end up finding support. At least that's what it looks like for me. So I have been deeply supported in my journey. I've had coaches, I've had healers, I've had practitioners, I've had ceremonies, I've worked with various plant medicines and still do. And there is, this is not a one-man show. Like there's a lot of expertise that is available to you that is really going to serve you and really accelerate this process of quantum evolution, because now we're really in quantum evolution space, because we've moved through these lower vibrational energies so much, and so many of us have been doing this work for quite some time, and we have so much assistance from the other higher dimensional realms, and that where the planet, she's on her own, planet Earth is on her own evolutionary trajectory, and so she's moving through the photon belt into more light, and so there's more data coming into the planet, and you see it through these solar flares, and everything is changing, and it's a very auspicious time for us to claim our sovereignty. Everything is set up, actually, for us to claim it. And so, why does on the surface everything look like it's getting worse right now? Well, actually, it's because the pus has to come up and out of the wound before the wound can fully heal. And we're like right in that pus stage right now. Like we're in the midst of it, we're seeing the chaos and the destruction and even the forest fires and the hurricanes and everything that's happening on our planet, both environmentally but also, societally, like the politicians and the wars and all of that is the splinter working its way up and out of the system so that the wound can finally fully heal. And the only way out is through. It's just how it works. So there's a tremendous amount of traction and resistance and energy that is available to us for this process to essentially propel us through it. And because the universe loves us so much, it will create the most dire of circumstances for us to finally be willing to be pushed out of the birth canal and into that new stage of experience. Like when a child is coming out of the womb into this human form, into the human experience, it's essentially moving from one frequency, one stage of being into another stage. And in order for that to even happen, there has to be contraction. There have to be these contractions that create the push and then the release, and then the push and then the release that allows for that transition to happen. So we're in the proverbial birth canal collectively, where there is a tremendous amount of pressure, a tremendous amount of pushing that is really allowing us to give birth to this new version of human, which we're deciding collectively what that's going to look like. And one thing is very clear, is it's leading us back to a more tribal way of being. It's leading us back to a more collaborative, more symbiotic way of being. So in a lot of ways, the information that's in your DNA that's stored there is actually very ancient information. It's actually pretty simple stuff, you know? It's like, treat others how you want to be treated, and don't take more than you need. And I mean, come on, it's like, it's basic. This is basic stuff for how to play nicely on the playground. And yet, we've forgotten it. And we've gotten so confused and so distracted and so overstimulated that we've lost sight of that which is truly important. And we are being forced now, through these dire circumstances that we co-created, to remember. And all of this, the healing and the transmutation and the identifying of the trauma and the programming and all of it, it sounds horrible. I get that. It sounds not fun at all. And certainly parts of it are very intense, but if you remove the story of pain or suffering around it, and you release your resistance to the uncomfortability of the unknown sensation, actually, it's not that bad. You can transmute it in real time simply by choosing to be present with it in the moment. And here's the thing about transmutation. Transmutation is an alchemical process, essentially, of turning something from one form into another form, right? And so that always happens in real time, meaning we can think about change, we can think about transformation, we can plan it, all of that. It's all hypothetical. None of that's real. What's real is the real-time transmutation of you actually being willing to relinquish your resistance and truly feel whatever you need to feel in order to graduate to that next level of awareness. And that only ever happens in the here and now. It happens in the here and now. And it has a profound ripple effect in the quantum field, because you are intrinsically connected to everything around you. And the moment that you choose to claim your sovereignty, you're actually choosing it for everyone. You're choosing it for the collective experience as well. And again, because enough people have been doing this work, it's easier to choose it right now. It really is, and not everyone will, because again, this is a game of free will, and you don't have to choose it. You don't have to choose to remember that you are the creator. You don't have to choose to feel your shit. You can continue to live in a lower vibrational experience. What that looks like, that trajectory or that timeline, I don't know, but it is an option, because again, you're not being forced to ascend into a higher vibration where there's more peace and love and joy and unity on the planet. Like, no one's making you. You get to choose that for yourself. So, speaking of choice and speaking of transmutation in real time, as I mentioned in the first video, there's a PayPal button below that is an invitation for you to really tune into your money story and feel into how can you begin the transmutation from poverty programming to essentially trillionaire consciousness right now. And it doesn't have to be that you send me an energetic love note through the form of PayPal. It could be that you tune in and you go, I really want to buy my girlfriend flowers, or I really want to donate to this cause, or I really want to, support my friend whose dog is going through surgery and I know they can't afford the vet bills and I'm just going to contribute $100. Like, whatever it looks like, it doesn't have to be me. I am just one of many, many options and opportunities for you to start to play with the exchange of energy in a more joyful and compassionate and loving way. But since I did spend the time to share this information with you, and I did invest the many, 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 many hundreds and thousands of hours in becoming who I am today to be able to share this with you and download this information, I do invite you to play with me. And if you feel inspired from a place of joy and satisfaction to send me a love offering through PayPal. Again, know that I will use it for the furtherment of unity on this planet. I will most likely be pouring it into a creative project of some kind, or I will be pouring it into my own personal growth or into my own personal self-care, which is number one. And so I thank you either way, whether you choose to send me something or not. I thank you for being here and for choosing to listen to all of this information. It's a lot, I get that. And I thank you, if you do decide, I thank you in advance for your energy, because I know that that energy is valuable, and I trust that it's being sent with love. And just notice, when you do send it, if you do send it, where's the contraction? Because most of us are still going into a contraction every time we do some sort of financial transaction, even if it's ever so slightly. But most of us have pain associated with paying. Even that word, like you have to, or that expression in our society, like you're going to have to pay for that. It implies sacrifice. It implies punishment. And so really to step away from that story and step into the knowing that money is energy and energy wants to circulate, and with the more ease and joy and open-heartedness that you can send energy out into the world, the more it's going to come back to you with that same energy. So I love you. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to playing with you further. Oh, and if you want to know more about my actual packages and my offerings, I do work with people one-on-one, and I do have a lot of resources for ceremony. You can apply to connect with me in a more personal one-on-one container. I'll include a link for the application below. Just know that because of my very high self-worth that I've cultivated over the years, it is a substantial financial investment to work with me personally, and I am therefore always trying to create offerings like this so that those who are not yet in that abundance conversation can also still feel like they can access the information. So I love you, and I'll see you soon.